What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at AMD stock, ticker symbol AMD, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Tuesday, March 12th. Alright guys, so Advanced Micro Devices here today, down $9 a share, that's minus 4.34%. Let's take a look. It is up about maybe an extra point or so after hours. Listen, as always, whether a stock is pumping in your favor or dumping against your bias or vice versa, we typically have to take after hours with a grain of salt. Volume is so incredibly low. So unless volume is matching what we saw intraday, which usually takes a business-specific news catalyst of some sort, earnings is a great example, unless that's the case, 99% of the time we have to take that after hours movement with a grain of salt. But let's get started here on AMD today by starting with our daily ritual, the volume profile analysis here on the 5-minute chart. By the way, listen, if you guys are looking to try to expedite your journey as a trader, I really think our private trading group would be of tremendous value to you. Take a look at that link in the pinned comment. Been running that for 3+ years now, going strong. So get grandfathered in at the current rate before the price goes up again, and hope to see you join. So here on the volume profile, you know what we're looking for. I'm looking to pull out any sample size bias that I possibly can out of today's session. So what I really want to look at is, okay, what was the most obvious moves in the stock today? I'm kind of looking at this batch of 3 moves here, as well as this upside move and fade. And then I'm pretty interested in this fade here as well. Okay. Now, for example, just for context here, if you're a bear, you would want to see as much volume as possible on the downside moves and as little volume as possible on the upside moves. But remember, it has to be out of context compared to what you would typically expect at that time of day. It's not simply a level of volume that we're looking for, because that fluctuates throughout the day. So now if we take a look at the volume, let's go from left to right here. Okay, we have those kind of 3 circles to look at, which the first 2 are a variety of moves. Now, that first volume bar off the opening bell, we expect that to be a lot. And if we compare that to Friday, you can see that it is a bit higher, but it's only about 1 million, maybe 1.25 million shares higher off the open. We're not talking about Friday's open being 2 million and today's open being 6 million shares. Like, that's within the range of what is contextual off the open, okay? So that opening candle is rather contextual. Now, the next candle, we typically expect to see a pretty quick fade. So that next candle, the green candle, again, you know, bears, well, I wish I had some better news for you off the open. Bulls, wish I had some better news for you on that second candle. Now, the fade that was heading into that intraday reversal that we got back upside, this fade here is what we're now looking at. You know, we saw kind of sustained volume on that move, but ideally for that to be incredibly definitive, I would have preferred to see at least 2.5 million, considering that the candle prior was, you know, already into the day by 5 minutes plus and was almost 2 million shares, which actually exceeded all of these. Another way that this would be more definitive to me, if we had 4 consecutive candles in a row that were maybe 1.75 million to 2 million, just beefing up a little bit to throw that context off a little bit. So again, bears, I apologize. I wish I had better news for you off the intraday lows there as we headed in. And then we bounced, and bulls, we saw just a very average volume fade. So nothing to be had there either. Okay, bears, can I save the day for you here? And bulls, is there anything here that'll have you saying, you know, uh-oh, as we move into the end of the day with this 7 consecutive red candle downside fade? Was there a huge sample size that said, yes, we agree AMD belongs lower? The answer is no. It was incredibly contextual. Okay, so even though some days we get basically nothing out of the volume profile, it's important to look at it, because if you're a bull, right, and a bear, I suppose, you should want to be aware. Was there a huge outsized sample size bias in the volume profile today? And if there wasn't, as a bear, I would be looking at that and saying, okay, perhaps the move wasn't quite as strong from a volume perspective as I thought it might be. You know, granted, it's still down 9 points a share, but just that added factor in bulls, you'd say, okay, it is down 9 points a share. That's non-negotiable, but how did the volume look? Right? Like, am I missing something here in terms of the volume profile? And the truth is, it's a pretty contextual volume profile here today on AMD. Now, let's take a look at the self-fulfilling prophecy psychological levels that I'm going to be paying close attention to on the most popular time frames with the most popular self-fulfilling prophecy indicators we can possibly slap on a chart, the 50-period moving average and the 200-period moving average, and we'll start here on the 30-minute. Now, we can see here on AMD that since Friday's trading day, we have given up the 50-period, and now today we gave up the 200-period. We actually gave up the 200-period in the after hours late Friday. However, I like to see give-ups and take-backs happen during more so the intraday session, just because we get a lot more volume. It's a lot more definitive. And in the last 2 trading days, we have given up on the 30-minute, the 50-period, and the 200-period, okay? Now, I think of these as nothing more, nothing less than psychological barriers, okay? And those barriers can act on both sides. So, bulls, heading into tomorrow, Tuesday, we have the 50-period crossing over the 200-period. That in and of itself, to me, is meaningless. Okay, I'm not a golden cross, death cross kind of guy. All I'm interested in is where is the actual indicator itself, because I know millions of other people are looking at the same thing, and algorithms, because they know other people are looking at the same thing and making decisions around those indicators, algorithms get programmed to also make decisions around those indicators to try to capitalize off of that self-fulfilling prophecy. So bulls, on the 30-minute in particular, come tomorrow. That 50 period is about 2.25% away to the upside, and the 200 period is about 3.7% away to the upside. Now, we have seen crazier things on AMD. Today was a 4.34% day. So bulls, best case scenario here tomorrow on the 30-minute chart, a rip upside through both of those here on the 30-minute chart, a low volume retest back to whichever moving average is higher at the time, likely the 200, unless we were to see a hard curl up of the 50, okay, on average to below average volume, and then a hard high volume pull away. That would also be a reclaim of $200 a share, which we will get to on the daily chart. Now, you bears, your ideal scenario here tomorrow, Tuesday, you would love to see that 50 period continue downside as aggressively as possible. Ideally, honestly, below $200 a share would be a great thing for you guys to see if you're a bear. But any upside test, you want to reject hard off that 50 period, staying below the 200 period, right? Rejecting hard off the 50 period on big volume. And again, you would love to see that 50 period getting below $200 a share just to beef up that level as a potential resistance. Okay, with, of course, the stock remaining below. All right. Now, let's move on here to the 4-hour and take a look. And the 4-hour is incredibly in play. It looks like this 50 period is actually, maybe what saved the stock a little bit here today from going any lower here, because we are right up against that, bouncing away a little bit now here. But this makes the 4-hour chart really contextual, really important, and really simple heading into tomorrow. Bulls, we just want to see that 50 period hold with any retest and hard pullaways getting away from that level. Put some distance in between the stock price and the 50 period moving average. Bears, really simple for you guys too. How do you discourage the bulls on the 4-hour? Well, crack below the 50 period and create that as a temporary resistance level, right? So break down below, but since it's a new break, I would ideally prefer to see a retest on low volume and then a hard high volume pull away back downside to really kind of cement that level as a short-term resistance here tomorrow. And again, when I say like pullaways, I don't mean for 15 minutes. I mean that holds into the close. Ideally, we're talking about big, important psychological, short-term macro levels, if that makes sense. Little 5, 10, 15-minute breaks, even 30-minute breaks, I don't care. I want to see it actually hold throughout the day with a lot of volume coming through and agreeing that that's the way that this is going to go, at least in the very short term. If something breaks for 15 minutes and then reverses, it's nothing to be confused about. That's not a break to begin with. It's not a break and hold. Now, on to the most important chart of all, and that's going to be the daily. This paints the most obvious picture, right? You can see that those moving averages are not contextual. They're not, really in play in the near term. The nearest one is that 50 period, and it's at about 171 a share. Guys, listen, the story on AMD tomorrow, because the daily is the most important chart. Because everyone's watching it, right? And it paints the most clear picture, which means it has the story with the most eyeballs on it. The obvious story on AMD tomorrow is the round number of $200 a share. It's such an important psychological level, and it's so obvious that everybody's watching it. Bears, let's start with you here. What you guys want to see tomorrow? Any retest of $200 a share, you want to see a hard hold of that region. I don't mind if it goes to $200.30, as long as it hard fades back below $200 a share. Ideally spending as little time as possible above there and having the majority of the volume occur on that fade back below the level. Bulls, priority number 1 tomorrow. This is really what you're looking at if you're a bull tomorrow on AMD, at least in my opinion. And I think most people would agree. A reclaim of $200 a share and a close above $200 a share, spending as much time intraday above that level as possible and then closing above that level. That's a beautiful sight if you're a bull on AMD in the very short term. A reclaim of $200 a share, claiming it as a support level, and then ideally, I know this video is geared toward tomorrow, Tuesday, but ideally holding above that for as many days as possible. Right, 1 day is a start. 2 or 3 days makes that more of a definitive move. So a really clear story here on the daily on AMD today heading into tomorrow. Now, time for my favorite part of the video, and I know a lot of your guys' favorite part as well. Let's take a look at what was the bias in the options chain as traders position themselves today heading into tomorrow, Tuesday. So we had 701,000 total contracts traded here today. Actually pretty split down the middle. We have a slight call side bias. About 366,000 calls and about 335,500 puts here today. Not overwhelmingly so, but a slight call side bias on AMD here today. And if we look here, it's interesting because that 0 to 20 delta range, those are those short-term speculators, at least the highest density of those, style of traders, because those are those far out of the money, cheapy, gambly style calls and puts. We have about 122,000 calls and about 131,500 puts. So 122,000 calls, 131,000 puts. Again, relatively undecided, but a very slight put side bias actually in the short-term speculator delta range of 0 to 20. Guys, don't forget to cast your vote before you head out. Head down to the comment section and comment which ticker would you like to see me cover as tomorrow's wildcard stock. Whichever ticker gets the most comments out of today's entire batch of videos, I will cover for Tuesday, tomorrow, wildcard stock. Also, hey, listen, if you got value out of this video, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.